Hey everybody, welcome to the Global Health Impact Network Education Series. Our goal with these series is to take you on a journey to understand the topics we discuss in more depth. Today is our fourth episode on intellectual property. In today's episode, we will cover building IP portfolios to create company value. And as always, I'd like to welcome back our expert in this manner, Mr. Joshua Goldberg, co-managing partner for Nath Goldberg and Meyer. Joshua, it's great to have you back.
Thank you, Martin. It's great to be here again with you.
Awesome. Let's kick off today's episode, which is building IP portfolios to create company value. So, the first question I have for you is, what does IP have to do with company value?
That's a great question, Martin, and one I get asked an awful lot because everybody thinks of IP as something ephemeral, right? It's not something real and concrete like physical assets. If you have a manufacturing plant, for example, or a warehouse, you can see, touch, feel, possibly even taste whatever it is you have. Um, But it's really important to shift your thinking a little bit because each form of IP that you can prove, that you can show you have, actually really is a company asset. So if you think about it, if I have, say, five inventions that my company has made, and all I've done is say, okay, I have these five inventions, I go off and sell products. Uh, all I have then is those products because I haven't done anything about it, right? Even though I have some new technology, the only value I have to the company from that new technology are my product sales, because that's what lets me presumably sell as much as I do for the price I do. But it doesn't help me stop others from competing with me. And it doesn't help me stop maybe a downward price pressure if somebody else doesn't have to pay for their R&D so they can come in with the same product at a different price point. So instead, if I take those five inventions and I get patents on them, I now have turned those ephemeral ideas, those inventions that are floating around, into something real and concrete. You know, a registration certificate. Now, this isn't a patent here, it's just a piece of paper to exemplify it. This certificate, this patent certificate, something I can point to concrete, something I could hold, again, something I can touch and feel. That's a real asset, right? If you have a balance sheet that you're working with where you would list, okay, here's all your assets, you could list your IP as assets to the company. So why are they assets? Well, number one, they're real and concrete as opposed to the just the ideas of your invention. Number two, they are a mechanism, a way you can stop competition. So if somebody else wants to compete with you and sell your same widget that you have some advance in, you can stop them by virtue of having this patent now. And this gets back to, what does a patent let you do? It lets you stop others. So you're building value in your markets by keeping your markets solely to yourself. You can essentially charge what would be considered monopoly pricing for your product because nobody else can compete in selling the same thing. And number three, if you're looking for funding, either somebody to fund your company, an angel investor, a VC, something like that. If you're looking to out license your technology and get some funding that way, if you're looking for an exit to sell your company, whoever it is that's you're looking to pay you to give you money for any of these events, they're going to want to know that their investment, their payment to you is safe, or as safe as you can make it, that it has a diminished risk. If you don't have that IP in place, the risk to them goes up because, like I said, the IP helps you protect those markets. No different for your investors or for your acquirer. The IP presumably will go along with the deal and helps them protect their market and thus helps them protect their investment. So if I have company A over here and company B over here, both selling essentially or working in essentially the same technical area, A has five patents, B has no patents. Guess what? A is going to ask for and get a whole lot more money than B. I mean, B can ask for it, but they're not going to get it because they haven't done the job of creating the value in the company. They haven't protected the company assets the same way that A has.
Okay, so when should I start looking at that issue?
Well, it's never too early, right? Um, I've talked about in one of my interviews with you that it's possible for you to disclose your idea, disclose your invention, and put it out there for the world to have. Make it part of the public domain. If you do it too early before you try to patent it, as I said, I believe on our last interview together, you have to know where you're going. If you don't know where you're going, anywhere you wind up is going to be fine, right? And it's so true in so many aspects of not just what I do, but in life. If you have no idea where you're headed to, okay, so I wound up here. This is where I wound up. That's okay. I didn't know what I wanted, so this will work out just fine. But if you know that, hey, I'm a technology based company, my assets are in my IP, whether it's my name and brand and logo, whether it's my new ideas and inventions, whether it's, my manuals and my documentation, whatever it is, I know that I want to get to, okay, I want to sell my company in 5 years. I want to uh, bring a product to market in 2 years, but I can't do that without investment by somebody else. I don't have the money on my own. I want to develop 5 different areas and separately license them out. None of those things are going to happen if I haven't planned for the right time to protect my IP so that I have those assets to bring to whoever I'm asking to fund my company.
Okay, but when is it too late?
Too late. That's possibly an even more important question. Um, Usually it's too late if too much time has passed. So this gets back to two different ways of looking at it again. One way of looking at it is it's too late if I'm already going out to investors and they're saying, "What's your IP position?" And I say, "I haven't thought about it." Or, "What's IP?" Or, "I don't have one." Um, that's clearly too late because the investors are going to say, "That's very interesting. We'd love to work with you. Here's the little bit we're going to offer. Otherwise, come back to us when you've thought more through the IP. And maybe then we can talk about a higher raise." Okay, clearly that's too late. But again, getting back to what I was just talking about, if you're not thinking about it early on in company development, early on in the progress of the company, you might have missed your date to be able to file a patent application and get a patent out of it. You might have missed the time period by which you can file your copyright because somebody else did it before you. Things like that. In which case, you know what? At that point, it's too late, but you don't know it until you're into it. So it's much better to think strategically to know, okay, what are my timelines? When should I do this? And if you think about it from early on, then you're okay. Then you don't have to worry about, did I wait too long?
Okay, but how do I know where to start?
How do you know where to start? Well, um, we work with a lot of companies who come to us and say, hey, we want to make sure we're maximizing company value, maximizing the value of our IP. We have these 3 patents and these 5 trademarks, but we really don't know what else to do. Nath Goldberg Meyer, Josh Goldberg, can you come and help us? Well, absolutely. I can help every time. And what I would usually do is I would come into the company, first check out the company website, ask the company, what products do you sell? What products are you working on? What do you develop? And that's from senior leadership because, of course, they have a good handle on those things. But then I take it a step further. I would, back in before the pandemic, I would actually go on location to wherever the plants were, wherever research was happening, wherever the client had a significant facility, and walk around, right? Nothing more than walking around and meet with people. Oh, you're working in this lab here. Do you have 5 minutes to talk with me? What are you doing? You know, what kind of things are you working on? Oh, are you only focused on this one area or are you working on others? No different if I'm in the manufacturing part of the facility. Oh, hey, what are you guys making here? Oh, that's interesting. How do you do it? Was there anything that went into it beyond just ordinary figuring out this is how we do it, or was there some ingenuity that got involved? Or what's your next steps? What are you going to be doing next? And what are you going to be doing today or tomorrow? And I would lecture. So I would go to wherever it was that people were working, and I would explain to them, here's what intellectual property is, here's what it covers, here's what it does not cover, uh, here are the things that you want to consider, here is how you would be an inventor. And after doing all of those things, I'd come back and look through all the notes I took at every step of the way and come up with the punch list that I could bring to senior leadership of the company to say, hey, I walked through everywhere, I talked to everybody. Here are all the things that everybody in your company is working on that have a potential IP component to them. And maybe I come up with a punch list of 30 things. And I realize that you don't have a budget, the funds to work on all 30 things. So again, let's be strategic. Let's talk through everything and figure out where you're going to get your biggest bang for your buck, where you're going to get the most value out of each dollar or euro or RMB that you spend on this project, so that we could again separate into tier listings. Here are the tier one projects that are most important. Here are the tier two projects that are somewhat less important, but they might still have some value. And here are the tier three projects, which what, in a perfect world, sure, we'd protect all of these too, but yeah, there's no way for us to do everything. So these are going to be first on the chopping block.
Okay, so what can IP portfolios be used for?
They're a way to protect your markets, to keep others away. So if you're selling here in the US and in Germany and you have patents in each of those places, you can keep the competition away through your patents, right? You can make sure that nobody else sells something that has all the features as you do. Likewise for, say, trademarks, right? You want to protect your brand. You have a brand of Eels podcasting. You don't want anybody else to be able to podcast under that name and cause the likelihood of confusion or confusion in the marketplace. So you can protect that so that nobody else has a name that sounds similar to yours. Anybody who's looking for Eels podcast will find you. So that's one way. Another way is, again, all this I was talking about, building company value. So you know that you want to sell your company in the future, or you want to license technologies off, or you're looking for investment in the company. All of those things are only going to be maximized if you have an IP portfolio, an IP position that you can use to defend what you're doing and to ask for a premium. Um, Maybe you want to open some new markets, right? And you're an international thinker. You suddenly want to start manufacturing in Turkey, or you want to start selling in Colombia, or something like that. Well, if you have patents in those places, it's an easy way to get into those markets because one, now you know you have some protection. And if you need to find a partner in those markets, they might be more likely to work with you knowing, hey, whatever we do is going to be protected. I can put investment here to develop this product, to start manufacturing, knowing nobody else is going to be able to compete with me. Then, of course, you have the issue that patents can be seen as potential tax shelters, right? You have value in a patent that's a large bit of company value that might be tied in your intellectual property. So it's a way of maybe having your company valuation be higher without having to pay taxes on all of it because it's a fixed asset rather than cash in the bank.
Okay, so can IP portfolios be monetized?
Yes, 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 100 times yes. There are whole companies where their sole business practice, their sole way of making money is around their IP. They don't actually sell any products or services. They don't manufacture anything. They don't make anything other than IP. And this way they can go around to the marketplace and say, hey, I see you want to break into the world of ball bearings or new pens or new widgets. uh, I have this great new invention in this area. Why don't you buy it from me and it'll put you 5 years ahead of the competition? Or why don't you take a license from me so that you can compete on an equal playing field with this other company who's already taken a license from me, a non-exclusive license. So that's one way to monetize it. Another is just an outright sale of your patents. That would certainly be a way to monetize whatever IP you have, just to sell it off. Uh, a third way is you could potentially use it as collateral for a loan, right? So these are real assets that the business community recognizes, that banks recognize. Hey, we'll put up, our 10 portfolio estate or portfolio of 10 pieces of IP if you give us an investment or an infusion of $1 million, and here are repayment terms. Or even if you are a company that has a product on the market, you can use it as a tool for cross licensing. That's not necessarily a direct monetization, but I have a product that's out there that's selling, that I'm earning revenue from. Somebody else, another company, has a competing product where they could take my revenue away, possibly, if they stop me from selling entirely. My patent covers what they do, their patent covers what I do. We can agree to cross license our patents to each other, continue selling, keep the further competition out of the marketplace, and enjoy continued revenue that way.
Okay, I got another question. Is there anything you'd like to add before we go on to the takeaways?
Sure. So, one thing I would say is it's certainly a nice exercise to just get patents, get trademarks, get copyrights, but they cost money and they cost time and they cost effort. So the question is always why? Why are we doing this? What's the business purpose behind it? And at the end of the day, most likely you're going to want to monetize in some way, some avenue. So keep in mind, really think about, how am I going to do this? What's my business strategy? Am I a business that's going to be making product and keeping competition away? Am I a business that's going to be getting to a certain point and then I'm going to look for investment? Is my whole idea that um, I'm developing this to a certain regulatory position and then I need a company to buy me out? Am I only interested here in the US or around the world? Where are my sales likely to be? All of these are really critical questions to know. Okay, this is my strategy going forward. This is how I'm going to monetize. Now, how do I get those tools to let me do it? Where do I have to build the right IP assets so that I can monetize the way I want to?
Yeah, that's great.
And that's what I would say. Always, always, always know where you're going, or wherever you wind up will be fine.
I like that saying.
Thank you.
That's good. If I end up in Bali, there's a reason why I'm there. What's today's key takeaways?
Today's key takeaways are that yes, IP has an important part or role to play in the value of your company in monetizing whatever it is you're doing. And if you don't pay attention to it, even if you're not what you would consider a tech company, you're leaving a lot of value on the table. And it might not matter today, it might not matter tomorrow, but I promise you, at some point, you're going to be looking for some sort of cash infusion, value creation, or other influx of funds based on what you're doing. You're not going to be able to get what you're looking for if you haven't protected your IP. The bottom line.
Perfect. Well, I think that's all the time we have for today. In the next episode, we're going to cover what are the costs of getting your protection and the costs of not doing so. So, again, Joshua, thank you so much for joining us for the fourth episode and the fifth one next week. Wow, these are going by so quick. Um,
Time flies when you're having fun, Martin.
I know, right? Well, thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you. See you next week.
Bye bye.